Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So 2025 is all done and dusted, and before we look in 2026 and plan ahead, it is important for all of us to understand what were the major changes in 2025 which reshaped the game of GST in India. So therefore, in this particular video, we'll understand 5 of the major changes in GST and understand them in detail. But before we do so, let's try and identify what these changes were. Major change number 1 was with respect to GST 2.0, wherein from a 4 tax structure it got converted to a 3 rate tax structure. A lot of items became cheaper because the tax rates were slashed from 5 to 0%, from 28 to 18%, from 12 to 5%, and so on. That's the first major change which happened in September 2025. In the same month, the second major change happened, that is the constitution of the GST Appellate Tribunal, wherein a second layer was added in the appeal process to make things more easy for the taxpayer. Instead of going directly to the High Court through a writ petition, you could now file an appeal before the GST Appellate Tribunal and hear your case for an order passed by the first layer. The third change is called the Input Service Distributor Registration change, wherein if you have a head office and multiple branches, you now have to mandatorily get a ISD registration done for your head office and do some return filing and all that. So this came about from 1st April 2025, and this is a mandatory registration irrespective of the turnover limits. The fourth and the fifth changes are something which has made life more easier for taxpayers. One is the Simplified registration scheme, wherein based on your GST amount that you pay on a monthly basis, based on your risk profile, when you apply for a registration, if everything is okay, then you'll get your registration within 3 working days without a proper officer, without a GST officer looking at your application itself. As far as refunds were concerned, there was an existing provision where once you apply for refund, 90% of refund will be disbursed to you. But this was not practically happening on field. So therefore, the government has come about with a scheme wherein based on your risk system classification, risk profile and all that, the moment you apply for refund, within a short period of time, 7 days or whatever, government will disperse 90% of your refund before it goes for further verification. So these were the 5 major changes which, in my opinion, reshaped the game of GST in India. Now let us look into each in detail. The first one is the simplified tax rate structure GST 2.0, wherein from a 4 tax rate structure it got converted into a 2 tax rate structure. 18% for a majority of services, and for groceries and daily essentials the rates were brought down to 5%, making it more cheaper. For a lot of variety of cars in the non-luxury segment, small medium-sized cars, from 28% the rates were slashed to 18%, making them more cheaper to buy. And for insurance products, life or health, the GST rate was made to be 0%. So insurance products became more cheaper from September 2025. Same is the case of educational items, education stationery, education products became much cheaper because of the 0% GST rate attached to it. So simplified tax rate structure through GST 2.0 was the first major change that happened under GST in 2025. The second change is the constitution of GST Appellate Tribunal or GSTAT. Like I mentioned before, this was supposed to be the second layer of appeals, and now a second layer has been inserted wherein the taxpayer after the first layer need not go directly to the High Court and file writ petition and take a lot of time for the High Court to hear your case. Instead, a second level was inserted wherein you could file your appeal before the GST Appellate Tribunal within 3 months of the order passed by the first layer, and then they will hear your case. So the constitution was done after the 24th September 2025, wherein a principal bench was established in Delhi to hear specific GST oriented cases, and then you have in all the states of India state benches, in some states multiple state benches being located and established, consisting of judicial members, technical members and so on. An important point here to understand is that for all orders passed by the first layer of your appeal process, first appellate authority, before April 2026, you have an extended time limit to appeal before the GST Appellate Tribunal, the second layer, by 30th June 2026. And for all orders passed by the first level, After April 2026, you have to follow the time limit mentioned in law, which is 3 months from the order passed by the first level. So before April 2026, any orders against which you can file an appeal up to 30th of June, and for all orders passed after April 2026, you had a 3 months time which you have to follow as per GST law. So this was the second change, which is a long awaited change called the GST Appellate Tribunal Establishment or Constitution change. The third one is the GST Simplified Registration Scheme. Earlier, under registration, you apply, it used to take almost a month, although 7 days was the criteria mentioned GST law. It took a month, and if your Aadhaar or authentication failed, the proper officer would come to your location, do a physical verification, and it could take plus 30 days. Now you have an optional scheme wherein for small and low risk businesses, the moment you apply for a registration, if everything is okay, if you are tagged under the small and low risk category, you could get your registration or GST registration in your hands within 3 working days. Of course, the criteria here is that your GST liability in a month on your sales, especially B2B sales, should not be more than 2.5 lakhs a particular month. If it is more than 2.5 lakhs a particular month, the GST amount on B2B sales, then you cannot go for the option scheme. You need to go for the normal registration scheme. Otherwise, you can opt for the simplified GST registration scheme. The third important change. The fourth one is something which is added a lot of compliance to GST law, and that is the input server distribution registration, wherein if your business has a head office located at a particular place and multiple branches, B1, B2, B3, located in different areas in the same state or different states, then whatever is the input tax credit that you avail on the invoices coming to the head office, be it auditing services, be it advertising, be it any type of common services that for which invoice is raised on the head office address, but actually belonging to B1 or B2 or B3 or a combination of B1, B2, B1, B2 and B3, then the head office was liable to distribute the GST input tax credit in respect of this common invoice proportionately to B1, B2, B3 in proportion to the turnover. Now this was existing in GST law, but the registration of the head office or acting as an ISD was not mandatory. So the head office would already have a GST registration, but now with effect from 1st April 2025, as a distributor, as an input tax credit distributor, the head office will have to obtain a GST registration and file a return called GSTR6 and add a compliance and all that. So ISD concept was always there in GST law, wherein you had to distribute the credits proportionally on the basis of turnover to your branches if it actually belongs to them. But the registration as an input service distributor was not there. It is now made mandatory without any turnover limits from 1st April 2025. The last major change is basically revolving around refunds, which has made life extremely easier for taxpayers, because for a lot of exporters of software or service or goods, they had a lot of accumulated input tax credit, accumulated GST that they paid on their purchases before export. And when they went to apply for a refund of the same, the government used to process the application and disburse refunds after the mandated 60-day period. It used to take 6 months, 1 year and all that. But now what the government is saying is that, okay, if you're based on your risk profile, based on the risk-based classification criteria set by the CBIC and department and all that, once you apply for refund of unutilized GST on your purchases, then 90% of the provisional refund will be disbursed to your bank account immediately within a span of 7 days. So earlier, the 60-day criteria or the red tapeism involved in disbursing the GST refund is no longer going to be there. If you are belonging to a risk profile category which is satisfactory to the CBIC, which is satisfactory for the department, then they will disburse 90% of the provisional refund to you before further verification, the remaining 10% after further verification. So this will result in faster refunds and maintaining cash flow situation for a lot of taxpayers, especially for a lot of exporters. Well, 2025 was a very challenging year for GST, but a revolutionary year because of GST 2.0 introduction and GST Appellate introduction and simplified registration scheme and a refund scheme and all that. Well, it's been only 8.5 years since GST came into picture. 9 years will be completed once it crosses July 1st, 2026. Still very early for any legislation to show perfect signs, but of course, the GST law introduction has been a revolutionary change as far as that law is concerned. But there's been a lot of challenges because of amendments coming almost on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a frequent basis. But hopefully in 2026, you have all these changes deriving benefits in the coming year, and therefore 2026 should be a year wherein GST law should look like it's going to be more simplified. Well, I hope I was able to make things clear through this particular video. If you like the video, you could show support to us by hitting the like button. If you want more videos like these on a regular basis through way of notifications, you could also think of hitting on the subscribe button. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and thank you. Happy New Year.